Alright, so this is going to be part 1 to what if Deku was Accelerator.
Bad when the presence is greatness. 'Cause right now that has forsaken us. You should be honored by my lateness. That I would even show up to this fake shit. So go ahead, go nuts, go.
Alright, so I know I've done this one technically in the past, but I wanted to give it a different name, as unlike my other reworks or remasters, those followed the same story as the original videos that I set out. But in this case, what I want to do with this one is kind of redo the story, as I was all over the place with things I wanted to do and also appealing to the commenters, I guess. So this is going to be a little bit different, but have some of the same similarities from the original in some instances, but it's going to be try to be like its own thing. So if you guys like it and you want to see more redos in the future, you guys can tell me down below. So anyways, with that being said, let's get into the story. Now, we start off with Izuku at a young age. Now, ever since he's been born, he's had this quirk, that being Accelerator's powers. So to get a quick overview of what Accelerator's powers are, this is how I'm going to describe it. Now, Accelerator has the power over vectors, or he's able to manipulate them. If you don't know what a vector is, it's basically the term in physics that means a variable. This could be gravity, mass, acceleration, velocity, things of that nature. So with that knowledge, you understand how OP this quirk can be. Now, because of this, the quirk works like this. There are some things that this kind of field that Deku's around will naturally reflect, things that will be harmful to his body. So things like sun rays and things like that will be reflected. So Deku won't look like his normal self. He will have white hair and pretty pale skin because of how he reflects the sunlight. And because of this, his appearance is a lot different. So with that being said, let's get into his early development. So at a young age, Deku is basically almost shunned, not exactly that state, but he is just not socializing with the other kids because he looks a lot different and he's a lot, I guess, less approachable than it normally would. With him being this pale kind of kid that just kind of, just sits by himself, there isn't really many people that would approach him. Coupled with the fact that he has this mysterious kind of force field around him that just reflects things. There's a lot of mystery, and the unknown really just makes him an eerie person to be around. This affects Deku mentally, and he becomes jaded to some degree, but as he gets older, he almost accepts his role as being the outcast or even a loner, but he's not a pushover. As he learns how to control his quirk more over the years, it's not really that, I guess, powerful at first. It's only until people would try to bully Deku that it would really affect people, as it would naturally try to defend him in some cases. And as he learned more about his quirk, he'd be able to safely reflect things and also make things a lot more deadlier. Now, with the first case of bullying, the bullies would have gotten hurt really badly, because not only are you stopping the punch, but you're also reflecting it. With that force, you would have to have at least 2 times the energy. So you're almost like punching a brick wall at that point. Because of this, this also makes Deku less approachable and seen in a weird way. Something like fear. People fear Deku, and it's nothing to do really with him and what he's doing. It's because of how people interact with him instead of the other way around. So by the time middle school has started, characters like Bakugo would instinctually dislike Deku, as he's someone who doesn't really, I guess, acknowledge people like Bakugo. Those who really need that attention don't get it, and because of that, they try to fight back. But when they do, nothing happens. So Bakugo has this rivalry with Deku, even if it's one-sided. Now, this would have started early on in their childhood, obviously, as Bakugo would have been seen as someone with a crazy power, just how he does in the anime and the manga. But because Deku's quirk at first isn't really flashy, it's not really acknowledged in the same light, if that makes sense. So this rivalry slowly builds over time instead of how it happens in the series, because Deku wouldn't have interacted with Bakugo as much. By the time that we get to the end of middle school, or around this time, Deku is scouted to be in the recommendation program for UA, because over the years, when he's gained more understanding about his quirk and how to really maximize it using physics and different equations, the government has taken notice and they want Deku to be a hero and go to UA. They're even willing to pay for his schooling. And Deku at first doesn't really want to do it, as he sees no reason for it. Now, there is things like culture icons like All Might that would influence Deku to some extent to have some sort of moral code, but at the same time, he's not really that kind of person to go out of his way to help others, as he's never been really treated that kindness from others other than his mom. I just said others a lot. I'm sorry for that. But the state or the government basically promises to help with their financial situation, as although Deku's family isn't necessarily poor, it would help a lot, as I believe they're still in an apartment building at the beginning of the series, and with their father overseas, money can be tight. So with that funding from both sides, both academic and in his normal life, Deku decides to go to UA. But not just that, there is a caveat to this deal. They don't want Deku just to go in there in like a general studies or even just like class 1B or 1C. They actually want him to try. They want him to excel in UA. So this is where he gets into this mode of being the best, not for himself, but mostly for his family, as at this point that's really all he has. Now we could skip to the last day, with everyone wanting to go to different hero schools. People are shocked to hear that Deku wants to go to UA, as the kid who just sat in the corner doing nothing is seemingly having some strange ambitions. Bakugo goes up to Deku, who has his feet on his desk, and asks him, what's the deal with this? Bakugo sees it as almost mocking him, as someone who's never had any ambition of being a hero trying to go to this school. Bakugo knows that Deku could make it in if he tried, but the way that he's going about it makes him really mad. It makes him annoyed that someone with that much power is just going there out of some sort of like spur of the moment kind of thing, instead of actually wanting to go there. Deku looks Bakugo and he tells him that it's none of his business, but if he really wants to know, he's doing it for his family, and that's all he says to him. Bakugo takes this answer as something actually acceptable. For the first time in a while, Deku had shown what he actually wanted in life. With Deku being so powerful, life itself has been a bit boring for him, never having any sense of danger or really any sense of companionship has made him numb to the world to a certain extent, only really seeing solace in moments of happiness with his family and the entertainment that he watches, such as the old All Might tapes, things like that show him that there's more out there, that there's people just good by nature. Now we get to the Sludge villain attack. I would say Deku is basically doesn't even care. The Sludge villain would try to go towards Deku, and then Deku would notice something moving, and right when it goes and tries to wrap around Deku, it gets knocked away. The Sludge villain is then scared, not knowing that he picked a fight with a wrong middle schooler, but he isn't scared to the point of giving up. He notices that this kid does have a good quirk. He doesn't know exactly what it is, but if he's able to get into him, he'll be able to be unstoppable. Now he tries again, and Deku is getting angry because usually when people get reflected, they stop, but he didn't. He continues on and on, trying to find a weak spot in Deku's armor, but there's none, and Deku is just annoyed by this. He uses the vectors around him to make this kind of gust of wind, this kind of circle or this spear of wind to trap the slime villain. And the slime villain is just getting constantly spin within this sphere. This is when All Might comes, and Deku in this moment is almost awestruck. He didn't imagine that he would ever meet his hero and lets go of the villain, now dizzy after the kind of spins that he's been doing. All Might thanks the kid for keeping up with the villain and letting him catch up. Deku is almost lost for words and asks All Might if he could get his autograph. He says sure, and he does so right after stuffing the villain into a soda bottle. All Might then leaves, and Deku also leaves with his signature. But right before they leave, they obviously have this conversation on what's his name and things like that. He has this powerful quirk, and he asks him if he's going to go to a hero school. And this is when Deku tells him his name. He says his name is Izuku Midoriya, and All Might then realizes this is the kid that the government has been talking about, a very promising new hero in his mind. All Might doesn't have all the details on him other than that he has a powerful quirk and the government had an interest in him. Deku at this point would have told him that he's going to UA and really nothing else, as he doesn't want to give out too many details even to his hero. All Might says that he has a bright future in hero work. He can tell that he's made for this. Deku, after that experience, smiles, thinking that maybe this life won't be too bad. Then we get to the day for the recommendation test. Now Deku wouldn't have trained at all during these 10 months, rather trying to remember or retain the information that he's learned over the years of physics and learning possibly new equations. He knows he has to be the fastest. He knows he has to be the strongest. He has to be number one. He has to excel not only for himself but for his family. So for the different tests, he excels. He excels in almost every category using his quirk. So we get to the final test, I would say, and this is the kind of race. He sees two people that obviously have a high chance of being close to number one. The first one being Todoroki and the other one being Yuarashi. If you don't remember, that is the student with the wind quirk that you see in season 4. But I digress. Yuarashi tries to strike up a conversation with Todoroki and it doesn't go so well, him ignoring him. He tries to go with Deku and Deku doesn't really know how to react to this, as Yuarashi seems genuine and wants to ask Deku stuff. Deku is taken back a bit and kind of accepts Yuarashi's conversation, but doesn't really say much, as Yuarashi basically dominates the conversation. With this, Yuarashi isn't angry, and he isn't, I guess, that entire section with him versus Todoroki doesn't really happen, or it doesn't really exactly happen the same way, as he has something to really distract him from that idea of going to UA's sister school. So when the race starts, Deku basically goes all out. The area behind him is basically destroyed, as when he stepped forward, he launched himself so fast that Yuarashi and Todoroki couldn't even dream of. The acceleration was so high that the air around him started to heat up because of it. There was almost basically a sonic boom at this point. It basically goes far enough to shatter glass around, because remember, this is the USJ. Just how the kind of fight went down where All Might was able to break the roof where the glass was. It's similar to that effect, but obviously not to the same extent, as this is a very spread out kind of sonic boom. but it's almost deafening. He gets to the finish line almost instantly, and everyone there is astonished to see just what happened. But with that being done, no one else is really able to race, as Deku kind of destroyed the track getting there. So after a while, he's declared the winner, and they remake the track just so everyone else can redo it. With this, he is guaranteed a spot in UA. Alright, so this is going to be the end of this part. I hope you guys like it. I'm trying to do my older what ifs and kind of redo them, as they were bad quality in my opinion compared to what they are now. So if you guys like it, you guys can tell me down below, and you can suggest things to do in this what if. But I'm gonna make Deku, I guess, not exactly unlikable, but not really like totally morally good, if that makes sense. I want him to be more gray, just how Accelerator is in his series. So yeah, if you made it to the end of the video, I hope you like it. Please comment down CS so I know you support the channel. And with that being said, it's gonna be the video. Or actually, you gotta shout out the patrons over on Patreon. Now, if you want to join it, that's up to you. It only costs $1 to get these videos early, and you get a chance to get one of my drawings for each tier that you're in. So if you're in the first tier, you have a chance, but if you're in the second or third, you have a higher chance. So with that being said, you gotta shout them out. It'll be linked in the description if you want to join. And yeah, so in our gold tier we have Lyco and Dwayne Finn. So with that being said, this is gonna be the video. So yeah.